Okay, so I think we learned some valuable things about June. I think it was good to have students back in, allow teachers some time to spend with them in class. We know that students being in schools is a great equalizer in terms of allowing everyone to truly access education. And so part of the problem with remote learning was some students' lack of actual access for many different reasons to education. And so that's good. One of the other things we learned is that the workload in June for teachers has not been sustainable. So we need to come up with a better model for September. So what went well is students being able to connect with teachers, and teachers being able to connect with students. That went well. And we had students successfully graduate. That went well. And we had students, being able to sort of complete their school year and go on to the next in as best we could. And so what needs to happen for September is just much more careful planning. So I'm very pleased that government has agreed to some broad-based planning with BC teachers and other education partners to really make some decisions about what September should look like and beyond. We anticipate that we'll be in a phased or staged situation in BC for some time to come. And so that means that we may be living with blended learning for some time. And so we need to plan for it in a much more thorough way than we were able to in June. So in September, what we have is an opportunity to actually do some thorough planning. In June, we were in an emergency situation. In March, we were in an emergency situation. And so we moved to remote learning very quickly, not in a way that you would plan to do. And then we returned to schools, again, fairly quickly. And so what we have the opportunity to do for September is take the summer to do a lot of really careful planning. We have about 25 teachers that are going to be involved in the planning for September. And so it's really important that those classroom teacher voices are front and center in the planning for September. Well, that's part of the planning process this summer, is how do we make sure that secondary students are able to, again, truly access their education if they're only in schools for 20 or 40% of the time. It's really challenging. It's also challenging to form those relationships with students when they're not in class full time. That was something we didn't need to worry about this spring. This spring really worked based on the strength of those relationships that had already been formed between teachers and students and teachers and families. And so in September, there's going to be new challenges, and that's one of them. How do we sort of connect with our students when they are new to us in a blended environment? And then how do we make sure that there's a broad base of education provided for students as well? It's not okay for some courses to be eliminated and not taught. And so how do we provide that really broad education for students in a blended environment? So these are a lot of the questions that are going to be answered by or recommendations are going to be made by the Summer Planning Committee. It's also, of course, front and center is our health and safety. We need to make sure schools are safe, and that whatever stage we're in, it's unfolding in a safe way. And we can definitely do that in BC. We've been doing that this spring. And so I anticipate that those health and safety guidelines and procedures will enable us to operate in a safe manner in September as well. Well, and that's what we have to, that's why teachers need to be a part of the planning process. We need to take a look at the ways in which we are able to accomplish that. Students need their full education, and so we're not the only jurisdiction that will be in a situation of blended learning. And so our challenge will be to find solutions to the issues of how do we provide students with that broad base of education and their full education for 2020, 2021. I just want to recognize the really hard work of teachers this spring. It has been an incredibly challenging environment, and blended learning has been incredibly labor intensive. Remote learning was very labor intensive because teachers weren't teaching their whole class at the same time. They were accommodating schedules of students and families. And when it came to in-class learning, the workload became even more intense. And so I just really want to thank teachers for all the work they've done this spring, and I hope they get some relaxation time this summer.